Radio. This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Cat lovers and feline friends, it's time for Adele Park's Quirky Catnips.
Today on Quirky Catnips, we're airing a chapter of Quirky Cat Goes Splat by Adele Park. This frightfully funny tale is narrated by the ever-so-snarky Skitters the cat. Find out what happens when Skitters goes cattywampus for a kitten named Harriet. Tune in each week to hear a new chapter of Quirky Cat Goes Splat, only on Pet Life Radio. Meow Kitties!
Audio Recording St. George presents Quirky Cat Goes Splat. Written, produced, and edited by Adele Park. Narrated by a full cast.
Splat! Meow, bitches.
Twisted Tales by Skitters the Cat. Part 1.
This is a story for people who appreciate a good cat tale. The rest of you can go stab yourselves with your stupid allergy pens. When a cat chases a puddle in the bathtub or lays down in the middle of the newspaper you're trying to read, it isn't done for your entertainment. Get a grip. Sometimes we want to hear you coo like an idiot over how cute we are. Other times, like with the newspaper, we want to exert our superiority or maybe just screw with you. Cats always have an ulterior motive, even if it isn't obvious at the time. A battered bird dropped on your new living room carpet isn't a gift. Why would you even think that? No, the purpose is to gross you out. In some rare cases, it also serves as a reminder to refill the kibble bowl already. Dogs are different. Their pathetic need for attention requires them to forfeit all dignity. I have no idea why anyone would even want a dog. The way they show their appreciation is to drench you in mucus or hump your leg. Dogs also have the worst breath. Comparatively speaking, their farts smell better. When you leave home, dogs get all weepy. Cats, on the other hand, often get annoyed when you come back. Not always. Sometimes the litter box is full. It's not that cats don't enjoy a little affection. We just don't have to be saturated with it 24/7 like dogs do. We need our space, as all those with a smidgen of self-respect do. If for some reason you don't like any pets, congratulations on not having a soul. During the summer of 2008, I lost my heart to a fiery young tabby named Harriet. Yes, cats fall in love. What, you think bump kissing people is satisfying intimacy? This is exactly the sort of thing that prompts cats to mock humans so ruthlessly. My relationship with Harriet was inadvertently facilitated by a troublesome teen named Brandon Spinkle. He was a frequent guest at Gecko's Gulch, the desert mansion in Utah where I now reside. Brandon's wanderings took me to Juniper Hollow, the birthplace of the standoffishly radiant Harriet the cat.
Chapter 1. Brandon Spinkle.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to be the child of a famous person? Let me save you some time. It sucks. Most people don't know a thing about me, but lots of them have seen my mother in the buff. She's not the famous one, by the way. My dad isn't the kind of guy anyone would ever suspect of moonlighting as a rock star. For one thing, Dad spends most of his time working as a gastrointestinal specialist, which is really just a fancy way of saying he's a butt doctor. And then there's his looks. My dad is a short, bald guy who most women avoid trying to chat up, especially his patients. Dad is anal in every sense of the word, not exactly what you call a man-tart. That's why I was absolutely floored when I found out Dad has secretly worked as the lead singer for the rectal surgeons since his days in medical school. These guys are actually cool. As it turns out, both my parents were living double lives. My mom literally blew her cover by letting a dim-witted senior from my old school in Connecticut take a bunch of sleazy photos. Naturally, this creep shared these pics with everyone who has an internet connection. Can't say as I blame him. How many teens do you know who would keep a fresh load of mommy porn to themselves? Once Dad figured out Mom was getting way too friendly with my classmates, he hustled us out of Connecticut. We had been living in what Dad calls a McMansion. At the time, my sister Lexi and I were going to a private school. When all this smelly crap hit the fan, Dad moved us out of the McMansion and into my grandparents' house in Las Vegas. Not to sound like a whiner or anything, but living with my grandparents was seriously suffocating. My room was about half the size of a small elevator. This was about a year ago. I'm happy to report we now have our own house and Dad has a new wife. Her name is Blue McKenna. She's way out of Dad's league, but for some unexplainable reason, Blue seems to really like him. Dad has sole custody of me and Lexi, but we are forced to spend our holidays with Mom. Last summer, we rented a condo in Hawaii. Lexi didn't seem to mind, but I hated it. My mom is the only person who can make paradise feel like a prison sentence. I was trying to think of a way to squirm out of spending another summer with her when the news came that Mom landed a spot on a show called Celebrity Cougars. I totally wigged when I heard this. I couldn't believe she was selling out in such a cheesy way. Dad must have been irked about the whole Celebrity Cougars thing too, because when I flat out refused to go with Mom because of it, he didn't give me any grief. I was stoked when I first found out Dad is the lead singer of the Rectal Surgeons. It's amazing he could keep a secret like that for so long. The guys in Dad's band are into crazy costumes, so no one had any idea what these rear-enders were up to. The Rectal Surgeons were undercover because all three guys are doctors who worried their raunchy music would hurt their medical practices. Besides that, Dad says he never thought the band would amount to much, even though all three of their albums went platinum and they once had their own reality TV show. My mom had an idea, but never said anything until those disgusting photos of her were splattered all across the internet and Dad filed for divorce. Somehow, Dad found out Mom and her teenage photographer were planning to blab about his band in some book they were writing. That's when Dad called a meeting with me, Lexi, and my grandparents and fessed up about his secret life. Since we were all going to be affected by whatever happened, we decided to break the story before Mom could. Dad hired Blue McKenna for the project. She helped the band put together what they called a rockumentary. It had lots of video from different concerts, clips from their reality show, and interviews with the band members, Gaseous Iglesias, Schlick Von Schlapp, and my dad, Scotty Sphincter, known in real life as Dr. Spinkle. My grandpa's name is also Dr. Spinkle, and my uncle is a doctor too, so everyone was happy when they could just call my dad Scotty. Fun fact, my dad is the only Dr. Spinkle who operates on butts. I'm sure my grandpa and uncle are just as baffled as I am about why anyone would voluntarily go into Dad's line of work. I started hanging out with a guy named Taj Wakefield before we found out my dad is an undercover rock star. What's really great is that Taj's dad, Tom, became buds with my dad before he knew anything either. Any kid who has a celebrity parent will tell you it's important to know who your real friends are. I met Taj on my first day at North Platte High School, a few weeks before my dad came clean about his other job. I wound up sitting next to Taj in third period chemistry, and he offered to be my lab partner. I'd been in private academies my whole life, so I was shaking in my sneakers the first time I stepped into the lunchroom at North Platte. I barfed in my mouth a little as I stared out at the sea of inhumanity that is a high school lunchroom. I thought for sure I'd have to prove myself, or at least try and act all shibby just to get someone to let me sit next to them. Taj saved me the trouble by motioning for me to join him at a table with a couple of other guys. They were borderline nerds, but it beat the snot out of eating lunch alone. Taj turned out to be surprisingly funny, in a quirky kind of way. Appearance-wise, Taj comes across looking like a miniature accountant who just wandered in from the Sahara Desert. He's about half my size and has jet black hair and green eyes. There isn't a dress code at our school, but Taj always shows up in shirts that have collars. I guess his good feature would be his teeth. They're blindingly white and perfectly straight, even though he's never had braces. Taj's skin is the same color as the cinnamon toast he likes to make when he's at our house and there's nothing good in the fridge. He's only 14, but Taj cooks like a pro, which is a good skill to have since he eats like the fat lady in the circus.
Hang tight, kitties. We'll be back in a scratch. What happens when cosmetics and polygamy collide? Find out in Quirky Killers by Adele Park. Take a trip to quirky polygamist country, where one of the local brides is just itching to get her husbands to heaven in a hurry. Quirky Killers. Get it today on audible.com. You'll die laughing.
Begging to hear more of your favorite show? Full episodes of all our shows are available on demand. Go to PetLifeRadio.com to fetch our entire lineup of Possum Pet podcasts. Also, dig us up in iHeartRadio and iTunes. Let's talk pets. Live and on demand, only from Pet Life Radio.
We now return to more of Quirky Cat Goes Splat by Adele Park on Pet Life Radio.
I'm in the same grade as Taj, even though I'm a year older. My birthday is September 9th, just a few days short of the cutoff for enrolling kids in school. My parents thought I'd do better if they held me back a year, which is the only thing I can think of that they did right. I've always been taller and bigger than most of the guys in my class, which keeps me from getting thumped on by bullies. Taj, on the other hand, is exactly the kind of kid I would have normally pounded on at my old school. The first day I met Taj, he invited me and the guys from lunch to swim at his house after school. It was only January, but the temperatures in Vegas were in the 80s that week. Taj's parents have a humongous swimming pool. It even has a diving board. The best part is that his parents are hardly ever home, and his caretaker, Mrs. McMurdy, doesn't get all up in his business. Thanks to her, Taj and I can pretty much do whatever we want when we're at his house. I should point out that I don't just like Taj for his pool. My grandparents, and now my dad, belong to neighborhood associations that have pools. I try to avoid these places because they are usually crammed with stressed out moms and little kids who like to pee in the water. Taj will swim in anything, and in fact is trying to break a world record by swimming in the most amount of man-made pools. This could actually happen, considering the number of different places the Wakefields have traveled to. Mr. Wakefield is a pilot, and Mrs. Wakefield is a team leader for an international flight crew. Even in their free time, the Wakefields like to fly all over the world. About 14 years ago, they flew to Pakistan and got Taj. He had been left on the steps of a Buddhist temple that was later blown up by the Taliban. My dad and Taj's dad started hanging out while we were still living at my grandparents' house. I was happy about this because it made it easier to talk Dad into letting me crash at the Wakefields on the weekends. My grandparents live in the same part of town as Taj, but it was far enough away that Dad didn't want me riding my bike home in the dark. I made sure Dad knew how miserable I was in my crawl space, so he'd say yes just to get me off his back. When Dad finally decided we needed a house of our own, he bought a place that's only a block away from the Wakefields. He noticed the for sale sign one night when he was swilling brewskis with Taj's dad. Taj's parents give him complete run of the bottom floor of their house. The rec room has sliding glass doors leading out to the pool, so it's easy to dash in and take a leak or get something out of the downstairs fridge. Most of the pools in Vegas aren't much deeper than 5 feet and don't have diving boards. The Wakefield's pool has the works, including a slide at the shallow end, which looks like fun, but it's really kind of lame. The diving board makes up for it. Taj and I spend all day trying to outdo each other with flips and cherry bombs. Last summer, Taj was traveling with his parents and Mrs. McMurdy, while I was stuck in Hawaii with my mom, her parents, and my sister Lexi. Not wanting to repeat this sorry scenario, I've been racking my brains for an excuse to slither away this summer. Leave it to Mom to provide one designed to totally humiliate me. I guess Mom decided things were going too well for me at my new school, and she needed to put a stop to it. 2 days after Mom announced she was going on Celebrity Cougars, a tabloid reporter showed up at one of the hospitals Dad works at. Boy, was he pissed. The next day, someone knocked on our door and started shooting video of Blue. I thought Dad was going to lose his freaking mind when he heard about it. Even my grandparents got a few calls. It was only a matter of time before some reporter stumbled onto those trashy photos and made sure everyone who didn't notice them the first time around would get a good look now. Gee, thanks, Mom. Incredibly, Mom is thrilled with the idea of getting to make a complete ass of herself on Celebrity Cougars. It's a new low for someone who has barely escaped criminal charges for letting a 17-year-old take X-rated pictures of her. I'm sure it wasn't exactly torture for the guy, but it's still illegal. Mom's parents usually like to gloss over all this garbage and even agreed to spend this summer in LA with Mom. Because of the photo scandal, Dad won't let us stay with Mom unless there are other adults present. Mom's parents tried to talk me into going to California, but I wouldn't budge. For once, Dad backed me up. He even told Lexi she didn't have to go if she didn't want to. Lexi is a real lapdog when it comes to these kinds of things. She thinks everyone should just have one big love fest, so of course she's going to LA. Dad is going on tour with the rectal surgeons this summer, so staying home isn't an option. I thought for sure I'd get sentenced to spend the summer with Dad's parents, but Blue, his new wife, shocked me by asking if I wanted to stay with her at Gecko's Gulch. Amazingly, she said Taj could come with us. The whole thing was packaged up so neatly it should have set off alarm bells. Instead, I just counted it as my good luck. Gecko's Gulch is the name of this super cush palace near Naval, Utah. Blue's sister, Moon, lives there with her totally gay husband and twin daughters. They don't seem to mind a lot of company because our family and the Wakefields have stayed there a bunch of times. When Dad married Blue, he bought back a house she once owned near Gecko's Gulch. Now that the rectal surgeons have been outed, Dad wants a place where we can get a little privacy. Naval certainly checks that box. As far as I can tell, no one in town has ever heard of the rectal surgeons. Sacred Sound's music store doesn't even sell their CDs. In case you haven't been to Naval, it's this little town at the end of a 25-mile dirt road. The entire city is surrounded by wild orange groves, which is totally off the charts since those trees aren't found in any other place in Utah. The mountains are red, so there's a whole lot of color going on. Blue has told me all kinds of wacky stories about Naval, including one about the guy who settled it. His name was Joseph Stratton. Get this, Stratton had 22 wives and 134 kids. Blue says anyone dumb enough to have more than one wife gets what he deserves. Naval has a twisted history with polygamy. A while back, whoever was in charge decided to ban polygamy so the town could get money from the state of Utah. About half the people up and left because they couldn't bear the thought of having just one mom per family. They started a new town about 20 miles from Naval called Zion Flats. Blue's sister hires a lot of polygamous girls to work for Good Karma, her skincare company. You can spot these chambermaids from a mile away. Even in the summer, they're sporting full-length prairie dresses. They have these hinky hairdos that look like they put a roll of toilet paper on top of their heads and then stretch their bangs over it. Needless to say, Taj and I won't be trying to score any dates with these hags. Fugly polygamist chicks aren't the only skeevy thing lurking around this part of Utah. Taj and I had some weird experiences this past year while doing chores at the property Dad bought for Blue. The people in Naval call the place Legacy Grove. That's where Joseph Stratton first hid his followers when they were on the run from the Mormon Church. According to Blue, Stratton built the stone house and packing shed that we now own. One of Stratton's 22 wives went crazy out there, which is why no one in town wants to have anything to do with the place. Taj and I spent several weekends cleaning up the orchard for Dad's wedding. Both of us felt like someone was watching us. Even the fruit is whack. It's blood red on the inside, kind of like a bleeding heart wrapped in an orange peel. This summer, Taj and I hope to get to the bottom of a few other freaky things we've noticed, not just at Legacy Grove, but also at a place called Juniper Hollow. Some seriously deranged shit has gone down there. It's owned by the mob, but the polygamists from Zion Flats got tangled up with them, and a bunch of people ended up dead. My plans for the summer were falling neatly into place until Dad got a hold of my report card. Most of my grades were C's, and I had flunked American Studies. Dad couldn't ground me because he wasn't even going to be home. He could have pulled the plug on my trip to Utah, but that didn't even come up. In the past, I would have blamed the F on Dad for failing me as a parent, but since he's hooked up with Blue, I can't use that as an excuse anymore. I have a pretty good idea she defended me when Dad got my report card. My mom would never do that. After Dad spent some quality time going postal over my grades, he scheduled a meeting with my American Studies teacher. We worked out a deal which involves me writing a 10-page essay over the summer. If I do a good job, my teacher will change my grade to a C. Dad made me take a solemn oath not to con Taj into helping me with my paper. Taj is one of those annoyingly good students. Dad did say it was okay to ask Blue to go over my stuff. I'm secretly glad he did. Blue has written a bunch of books. I've even read a couple. Sometimes I think I should write a book, but it would have to be about something totally rad. That's when I got a brilliant idea for my American Studies paper. How was I supposed to know it would lead to so much trouble?
In the mood for a killer audiobook? Quirky Killers by Adele Park is the story of a serial bride who sends her husbands to heaven in a hurry. Too bad the cops don't see the humor in this and arrest this woman who is just trying to make sure everyone gets to meet God. Quirky Killers. Get it today on audible.com. You'll die laughing.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.